Hello, SmartBear community. I'm welcoming you in our regular interview sessions with our top contributors. And today we will talk with a legend. Last year, when I was at SmartBear Connect, a user conference which we set up in Boston, a lot of people came up to me and asked, some even whispered if I saw him. He left the SmartBear community for some time and returned several years ago to help a lot of us. So please welcome Robert Martin. Robert, hello. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, how are you doing? You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
So please introduce yourself to the community a bit. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? And how did it happen that you became a software specialist?
Okay. Well, obviously, my name is Robert Martin. I live in southeastern Pennsylvania in the United States with my wife and 2 children. We have been living in this area for about 26 years now. No, not 26. 20-something other years. I've lost count now. I've been a software tester for 16 years, but I've been in the software industry for a little over 20, 22 years now. My undergraduate degree is actually in mathematics, so you may wonder why a mathematician is in software testing. Well, my degree is actually as a teacher, but there was not necessarily any positions open for teachers at the time. So I started looking around and found a nice job where I could do software support. Started out in support, ended up with doing end user training, and then an opening came around in my company for someone who do software testing. So I said, let's give it a try. And I've been a software tester ever since. How I got started with SmartBear, way back when it was actually called Automated QA Corporation, and they had this nifty little tool called IQ Test version 1.5 that I was handed by my boss saying, hey, we want to do test automation with our software. Use this tool and see what it can do. So I started playing around with it, and at that time, the SmartBear community as it exists right now did not exist, but there was this thing called Usenet. Now, most of you who are younger probably are like, what the heck is Usenet? There was this Usenet forum that SmartBear had, Automated QA Corp had a set of forums set up out there for people to log in and ask for help. And I was one of those people who had no clue what he was doing and spent a lot of time out there saying, I'm trying to do this and I have no clue what I'm doing. Can someone give me a help? There was a lot of great people. There was a gentleman named Eric Holton that I got to know. He still pops in and out on a couple things SmartBear related here and there. Alex, who you had the interview with already, he was one of the original guys that he and I had conversations back and forth, as well as a number of other people. So I started learning how to do test automation early on with the SmartBear tools, and really just fell in love with it. It's one of the things that I really like doing the most when it comes to my job, doing the test automation. I am an accomplished manual tester. I've done manual testing and QA testing for a variety of companies and a variety of product types, web and desktop, e-commerce, pharmaceutical corporations, document management, a number of different application types out there. In every position I found some point where my skills as a test automator came to play. I wasn't always using a SmartBear tool when I was doing automation, but the skills that I learned, I was able to translate to other tools. Came back to my first love in my position right now. I am spearheading basically the test automation initiatives for a hospital corporation in southeastern Pennsylvania. I've been there for a little over a year now, and it's been going very well, actually. Really enjoy the work and learning a lot. As for what I do on the community helped me out back when I was first starting out, and just returning the favor. There's a lot of people out there who want to be able to do this kind of work, want to be able to do test automation, and I feel obligated in some ways to say, hey, go for it, have fun doing it, and here's some ways that you can make it better, and here's some ways that you can actually become good at the job and the position. So that's who I am. That's where I come from.
Great. So sounds like you enjoy what you are doing.
Oh yes.
what was the biggest challenge for you in your life, in your professional life, I mean?
In my professional life, the biggest challenge for me, um, that's a very good question. I think, honestly, when it comes down to it, I had to learn the software industry from the ground up, from scratch. As I said, my degree is in mathematics education. So while I had a little bit of computer background, one of my courses I had to take for my degree was in computer programming, but I was not a trained software developer. I was not trained in development methodologies and all that kind of stuff. So I had to learn it basically from the ground up, from the inside out. So I think over my career, that learning process has been the biggest challenge, to just continue to learn the methodologies and to basically self-teach myself a lot of different things. And I'm still learning. There's still a lot of stuff out there. I keep on telling people I'm not a developer. I'm a tester. I know what I know, but there's many things out there I still don't know, and I'm still learning. So I think it's a challenge I had in the past, and it's a continuing challenge. And actually, I think anybody who is honest with themselves in their career would say that that challenge of continually learning, continually bettering yourself, and continuing to be on top of what is current in your industry is always a challenge.
Oh, that's great. And so even in the SmartBear community, as far as I see, you not actively, so of course you help a lot to new members by answering technical questions, but in addition to this activity, you post some topics where you share your knowledge. So some best tips, best tricks, or some these articles. So where did you find the time for all of this?
When you start a test run of automation and you basically are waiting for something to complete, you're sitting kind of waiting. And so when the times that I'm waiting, I'm writing. There's when it comes to software testing, that there's a lot of that sometimes. So you need to be able to even manual testing, where you're going to execute a test, but then you need to wait some time for a result. So in between the test runs and the analyzing results, while I'm waiting for something to complete, take a couple minutes, write something up real quick, and get back to work. So it's a matter of just it's in those little bit of downtimes where I have just a gap here and there to work.
Great, good advice. Thanks. And how did you get so involved in the community life? So as you had the background as a support engineer, you're a teacher, as you said. So you like teaching people, you like helping people, or you like getting kudos?
The kudos are always a good thing.
Yes, I know.
But no, I mean, one of the reasons why I got into teaching in the first place is because, just like sharing knowledge. I think that it's a responsibility of anybody who has knowledge that could help others to use that knowledge to help others. I think it's an important thing in any good society, that those who have the capabilities to assist others have the responsibility to assist others. And so in our situation, we have a niche community of people who are doing automated testing with a very particular tool. I have a set of knowledge and set of skills. I can hoard that and keep it to myself and just say, ha, look at what I can do. Or I can go and help others to better themselves and become better professionals and better testers. Ultimately, the goal is to have better software out there. One of the forget what it was. I guess it was during our 12 days of automation or 12 days of testing we had back in Christmas. One of the things that one of the topics was posted, I think, was on the lines of why is software testing important today?
Wow.
And the answer I gave then, and I still hold to it now, is that in our current era, computer software is in everything. It's everywhere. It is part of everything you do in your daily life. Your refrigerator talks to you these days. I mean, there's software in every little thing that you have out there. And as our society is becoming more and more run by computers and by software, there's a need to make sure that it all runs well and runs as efficiently and as error-free as possible. The role of a tester is very important, because while the developers write the code, our job is to make sure that your refrigerator doesn't yell at you in the morning, or that Alexa doesn't laugh weirdly at you for whatever. No, I don't know what that is, but yeah, all those little bugs and strange things that make life inconvenient. We as testers, our job is to make sure that you have as little inconvenience in your life where software is concerned, to make sure that everything works the way it should be right away, and that you can continue living life without problem.
So, actually, we appreciate all the things you do in the SmartBear community. And as you started talking about the developers and testers, I'm sure you know that there's always a war about who are the most important, testers or developers. So, which side are you? Testers, right?
On some level, yes. We are that last line of defense. We are that final wall that the software has to go over before it hits the rest of the world. So, and to some extent, we're a very important piece of the puzzle that I don't think the development process can go forward without a good tester somewhere in the process. Now, whether that tester is the double role, they're both a developer and a tester, I think it's still an important part of the process. But I was talking with an individual at work the other day, and one of the things that he mentioned is a philosophy that I think is important to remember regardless. Quality of our software is not owned only by the testers or by your QA department. It is something that should be owned by everybody throughout the process. So in that vein, I would say that both developers and testers both have a responsibility for making a quality product. So when it comes to getting that software development process running and going, the best situation is when testers and developers work together as a team to get that quality done. It's not an adversarial role. It shouldn't be testers versus developers. It should be testers and developers versus the software to make sure it works properly. I think if you can get into that kind of relationship with your developer, if you're a tester and you can get into that kind of relationship with your developer, or vice versa, amazing things will happen. I've worked with some great developers in the past where some of the best moments in testing were where I find a bug, and he and I sit down together at a single computer workstation, and together we combine our skills, him with the development code, the knowledge of the code, and how the software works in the development environment, and me with the user interaction and the different test cases that I come up with, just pounding out the work until we actually get a bug fix. I mean, those are the times I enjoyed most in my testing, when I can get into that partnership relationship with a developer. So if at all possible, get into that relationship. I know sometimes it's difficult because developers see testers as adversaries, enemies sometimes. Project managers see testers as the bottleneck that, well, we can't get the project moving forward until the testers sign off on it, so they're an annoyance. But really, I think if we have that, again, the philosophy of quality is everybody's job, but those partnership relationships you build up in your development organization are going to make really make your job much more enjoyable, and
Sure.
going to make your product a lot better product.
Sure. Sure. And if we start talking about the partnership, I've asked the same question, Alexa, and I'd like to ask you the same question. Do you compete with other community leaders and heroes, or do you feel like you're the best?
I don't see myself as competing with them. I don't compete with Alex or Marsha or Shankar or anybody like that. We each have our own skill sets that comes to the table. There are some things that Alex knows about software and such that I don't know, and I think there's some things that I know that he doesn't, but I don't know. I think he's a lot more experienced than I am. So I don't see it as a competition. Honestly, I think, again, it's a partnership that we're in it together to be able to make sure that everything is working smoothly and well. It's more of a team than a bunch of individuals doing stuff. Um, that's the way I like. That's the way I like to view it. It's not a competition, but a partnership. And hopefully, I conduct myself in that way, and that's my intent. So yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to hear this. There should not be war in the SmartBear community, even between, especially between especially among the SmartBear community heroes.
Yeah.
So at the moment in the SmartBear community, we have a lot of new members, and more new members join us each day. So what advice can you give to new members how to become experts in the industry? Which resources to learn, what to monitor, what to pay attention to?
Oh, one of the things that I would caution people away from is fads. Um, the software industry is not immune to them, that you get into these situations where, oh, we're going to do DevOps, or we're going to do Agile, or we're going to do this or that. And everybody wants to jump on board and do these new things and these fancy things, because we can say that we're doing this new wonderful idea. Don't necessarily get caught up in fads, for one thing. That's my first advice to people who are jumping into the testing industry, jumping into the software development industry. While it's important to know what's going on out there, it's important to know what DevOps is, to know what Agile is, to know what Scrum is. Don't jump on the bandwagon and try to do it all at once. One of the things that I talked about at Connect was, every software development company out there now wants to get into test automation. They want to be able to automate testing. And again, the caution is that can become a fad too, to jump in and try to do all the automated testing and get it all done at once, when, you know what, your organization may not be ready for it, or what one company does for automated testing may not be what another company needs to do. To not get caught up in trying to do what everybody else is doing, but to do what's right for your own organization. On a more personal level, for personal skill development, that's just talking just only about SmartBear and Test Complete specifically, which is where my area of expertise is. Go seeking out the documentation. The joke in the software industry is read the manual. I mean, just really. One of the things that I really have enjoyed recently, I don't know when you guys started doing it, but having the full help documentation for Test Complete available online for searchability and linking back and forth and everything. Back when I first started using it, the help was only in the application. There wasn't any online version of the documentation at all. So to be able to access that documentation at your fingertips at any time, be able to do even Google searches against it and those kinds of things. Really read the documentation that's out there. Everyone jokes that sometimes the documentation for software is not the best. I see a lot of good stuff in what at least the Test Complete documentation has in referencing and everything. Definitely jump on with whenever there is a free webinar that provides training or resource or anything for how to use the tool. Again, whether it's SOAP UI or Load Complete or Test Complete, jump on and get yourself into that webinar. It may sometimes be over your head. You may not be to that point yet, but at least you're hearing some of the things that will click as you get to that point within your application. Definitely the one-on-one sessions to get that brief introduction to the tool, to be able to understand what it actually is capable of doing. The other advice I will give to many new users that are coming in out there is that each tool that you use for your testing is different. SmartBear's tools are different than Selenium, and Selenium is different than UFT, and UFT is different than Ranorex, and each tool is different. If you're tasked to use a particular tool to be able to perform a particular function, don't try to make that tool act like some other tool. learn the tool itself, learn what's unique about it, what makes it work, what makes it run, so that you can be able to actually make it do better what you want to do. If you try to make Test Complete do the same stuff that Selenium does, while it will work, it's not going to work the best. And vice versa, try to make Selenium do what Test Complete does, while it may work, not going to work the best. Make the tool do what the tool will do. Finally, take some coding courses. Even though you may not be a developer, it's important to know how software is written for two reasons. First of all, a good tester knows how software is written so that you know what kinds of tests to run. You know, well, there's if-then logic. Well, that means I need to go two different paths through the code. Or there are objects that are instantiated, and you need to make sure they're properly instantiated in the code, and all those kinds of things. So learn the development side for that perspective. But also, if you know how to write code, you can write good automated tests because it is code. Whether it's a keyword test that you're using with the visual interface or you're writing script code of some sort, to know some good coding practices will help you get very far in doing your test automation. You'll be able to do a lot more with it if you know how to write some code. I mean, that's one of the things that was my constant learning process. I spent some time last year learning Java development, something I had never done before. But I wanted to learn how to write Java code, and so I'm not a Java developer. I would not interview as a Java developer anywhere, but I know more now than I did before, which means I can write better automation code as well as I can understand how the software is developed more to be able to make myself a better tester in the long run.
Okay, great advice. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
So you've already mentioned it that you were a speaker at SmartBear Connect last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was your first public speech. How was the audience? How was the conference?
Well, the conference overall was great. It was a good time of networking with different people out there. I honestly, it was kind of intimidating to be kind of a celebrity on site. I didn't.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't go there looking to be a celebrity. I went there because I wanted to network and connect and learn from others. But then to show up there and everyone was like, "Oh, look, it's it." No, I'm just me. So that was great. It wasn't necessarily my first time public speaking. Kind of an odd thing. I actually have a theology degree. I'm a trained preacher, so I've done public speaking before, but completely different environment. It was a very good experience. I enjoyed doing that. The audience was responsive and I think they appreciated what I had to say. I enjoyed some of the feedback that I got afterwards. People were coming up to me and giving letting me know that it was a helpful speech that I gave, helpful presentation that I gave, and then it continues to come back. People are saying, okay, well, you said that you recommend doing a framework. Well, what framework would you recommend doing? And so it spawns lots of different conversations for people to improve their processes and to improve how they're doing their testing. And I think that's important, that it's not just a speech that you go to and say, oh, that was a nice speech, and move on, but to actually, if the presentation is of quality enough and you're receptive enough to what was presented, it can be a continued process. And I think that's happening. And it's not just me. When Carson gave his message, his speech, and the various presentations I sat in on, there's been a lot of continuous feedback that comes back from that it's not just a once and done thing. But a lot of good feedback and continued conversation that comes out from that.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for the interview. That was so great to talk with you.
Same here.
If you want to add anything to the community members, feel free.
I don't have anything specifically prepared, but keep on working at it. Keep on trying. Keep on learning. Again, that is that is, I think, the key. That one of the great resources of the community we have out there is that it is a resource that, while there's people like myself and Alex and Marcia who are answering your questions, the idea is that you will continue to learn, you'll continue to be better. One of the things that again, it's interesting. Shankar, who's one of our heroes from this past year, he was one of those new guys who was constantly asking questions like, here's a question, this is a question, how do I do this, how do I do that? And now he's out there giving answers. And so that's keep on asking the questions, keep on learning, keep on figuring out new and better ways of doing things, so that you yourself will at some point in time be able to answer the questions. And again, continue that process of sharing knowledge and taking what you know and using that to help others. That's my biggest advice: to continue to learn, to continue to ask questions, and then pay it back, pay it forward, to be able to help others that are going through the same path that you are.
Thanks a lot for being with the SmartBear community. We really appreciate all your activities that you do in the SmartBear community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
And thank you for having such a wonderful community. It's good to actually have something like that for any software company to be able to share knowledge. It's a good thing.
Okay, thanks a lot. We will keep working as well.
All right.